"This is not a daycare, Kesha." Richard Thornton's voice dripped with contempt as he pointed at Devon, the 2-year-old boy sitting quietly on the kitchen floor with plastic pots. "This is my home, not your playground." Kesha's blood burned, but her face remained still. At 28, she had learned that showing anger, especially to a rich white man, was dangerous. Her son, oblivious to the venom in Richard's words, tapped his toy pot and smiled. "Mr. Thornton," Kesha said carefully, "it was an emergency. My nanny fell sick. I had no one to leave Devon with. It won't happen again." "It better not," Richard snapped, adjusting the cuff of his Italian silk shirt. "Because if it does, he's fired. And there are plenty of women who'd kill for this job. Women who understand boundaries. Not like you." The words hit like a slap. But Kesha only bowed her head and resumed cleaning, her silence disguising the storm within. What Richard didn't know was that Kesha Washington wasn't just a maid. She had a degree in business administration and 5 years of experience in corporate auditing. She had once been a rising star, until pregnancy, abandonment, and prejudice buried her career. Now she scrubbed toilets in the mansion of a man who believed her worth was no greater than a mop. But Kesha's grandmother had raised her on a lesson that never left her. They may break your dignity, but never your intelligence. Remember every word. Document every injustice. One day, it will all matter. And for 6 months, Kesha had been doing just that, collecting every insult, every racist remark, every crooked conversation Richard thought she was too invisible to notice. That day, as she polished the marble bathroom sink, she smiled for the first time. Richard thought he knew who she was. But he was about to learn he had never met a woman like Kesha Washington. The weeks after the Devon incident became a battlefield of humiliation. Richard called her to wipe invisible stains, criticized her family situation, and compared her to better maids employed by his friends' wives. One night, serving drinks at a dinner party, Kesha overheard Richard telling his guests, "You know how it is. It's hard to find truly committed help these days. Many of these people have other priorities." The laughter that followed felt like knives. Kesha poured wine with steady hands, but inside, she was etching another line of evidence into her secret archive. The breaking point came during a meeting with a Japanese investor. Richard, assuming she couldn't understand, said, "Government regulations force us to hire from certain communities. Lower standards. But she's well trained. Knows her place." That night, while Devon slept, Kesha pulled out her old laptop. She began digging into Thornton properties. Within hours, the mask fell. Millions in government funds for housing projects vanished. Zoning approvals tied to suspicious political donations. Whole neighborhoods cheated out of promised homes. Richard Thornton wasn't just a cruel employer. He was a criminal. For 3 weeks, Kesha lived a double life. By day, she scrubbed his floors. By night, she became an investigator again, photographing files, recording phone calls, tracing fraudulent contracts. The deeper she went, the clearer it became. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every family Richard had stolen from. And when his sister Victoria sneered, "Why keep that maid? You know how these people are," Kesha smiled quietly. Every insult was another nail in the coffin she was building. By the time she shared her findings with David Chun, her former supervisor at the auditing firm, David nearly dropped his glasses. "Kesha, do you realize what this is? Embezzlement of federal funds, racial discrimination, civil rights violations. Enough to put him away for decades." Kesha nodded. "The question isn't if we can take him down. The question is how to do it so he never hurts anyone again." Richard Thornton's empire crumbled in weeks. His company bankrupted, assets seized, sister disgraced, political allies fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. Meanwhile, Kesha Washington rose. 3 months later, headlines blazed. From maid to director, Kesha Washington recovers $50 million in housing fraud. Her office at the Federal Housing Department bore a new plaque. Director Washington. On her desk stood Devon's kindergarten photo, a reminder of why she had fought. Investigations spiraled outward. 1 businessman, 3 politicians, 2 judges indicted. A conspiracy 20 years in the making collapsed under the weight of 1 woman's patience. At the opening of the first housing complex built with recovered funds, families wept as Kesha handed out keys. "You don't owe me thanks," she told them. "This is your justice." Meanwhile, in prison, Richard Thornton sat on a cold bench, reading a newspaper. The front page showed Kesha receiving a Medal of Honor. His jaw clenched as David Chun leaned across the visiting table. "She turned your theft into scholarships, housing, opportunity. Even named a program after you, the Thornton University of Social Justice. Thousands of kids you despised will get the education you thought they didn't deserve." The humiliation was complete. Richard wasn't just imprisoned by bars. He was imprisoned by Kesha's legacy, proof that intelligence and dignity always triumph over arrogance. At home, Devon tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mommy, are you a hero?" Kesha knelt, kissed his cheek, and whispered, "Mommy just did what was right. And sometimes, sweetheart, the best revenge is success."